Hello my friends! Today I'm bringing you the second video in the series Make a Drawing Look Like Engraving. In the first video, I demonstrated how to draw a portrait, and in this one, we focus on a specific facial feature, the eye. To give this demonstration a more classic feel, I decided to use a handmade paper. The light brown tone and textures of this paper looks great. The only downside is that this type of paper, like some other handmade papers, is a little bit difficult to erase the pencil sketching. So, for drawing this demonstration, I'm going to use another piece of paper for sketching. Then I transfer it onto the final drawing paper. And I suggest using a thin piece of paper for this step. Firstly, let me show you real quick how to sketch the eye. The first step, you can find a central point. Then, start drawing a circle to represent the shape of the eyeball. The proportion between the iris and the eyeball can be different, but to keep it simple, you can divide the circle into 9 equal parts with horizontal and vertical lines, and the iris will be a smaller circle in the center. To define the eye width is about double the length of the iris, and the eye width is slightly shorter than the eyeball diameter. This ratio is just an estimate and can vary depending on the human age. The next step, let's draw 2 curved lines to express the eyelids. In normal state, these lines usually overlap parts of the iris, unless you're drawing a surprise eye or something like that, where the eyelids are wide open, revealing the entire iris. Then you can use straight lines to define the natural shape and the overall structure of the eye. After that, you can remove the unnecessary sketching to outline and define the areas for shading. And now, let's move on to the transfer process. Flip the paper over and locate the sketch area you have drawn on the front. Once you define the area, shading the back of the paper with a layer of pencil. You can use dark pencils like 6B for this step. Flip the paper back to the front and use a hard pencil to trace the outline of your sketch. Now you can see the lines transferred onto your drawing paper through the layer of pencil on the back. Focus on the key details without worrying about tracing everything or adding shading. When you complete transferring the sketching to the drawing paper, let's go to the main part. As I mentioned in other videos, I always start with the darkest areas on the drawing. In the eye, it's usually the pupils, or small details in the corners, under the eyelids, and the eyebrows. For drawing the iris and make it more realistic, I make the line directions that move to the center of the iris. Then, I use wavy or shaky lines to capture the texture of the iris. Depending on the eye color, the iris might be brighter or darker. However, it's usually a little bit darker around the edges and a bit brighter towards the center. The next step is to define the overall value by combining solid and broken lines. These lines will follow the 3D structure of the eye using cross-contour method. For the dark and mid-tone areas, I use the solid lines, and in the bright areas, I use the broken lines. After expressing the overall shading, I focus on the dark areas and the core shadow. By changing the thickness, You can control the light and dark values. The thicker the line, the darker the value. I suggest not to touch or overlap the lines. No matter how thick the lines are, always keep a thin white gap between them. Continue shading the dark areas on the eyebrow. To draw the eyebrow, use short, wavy lines that follow the natural direction of hair growth. These lines may or may not overlap to give a more engraving style look. Keep shading the dark areas and core shadow by adjusting the line thickness. Next, you can start working on the midtones to create a smooth transition between light and dark. Try to draw slowly and carefully in this step, because if the midtones are too dark, it could throw off the balance of the values in your drawing. And when you do the shading, pay attention to the cast shadow to ensure all the elements of the eye are well connected. Once you have achieved the values you want, you can enhance the contrast and the balance of the values using cross-hatching technique. The cross-hatching lines will be angled about 13 to 45 degrees from the hatching lines and will follow the form of the eye using cross-contour method. Similar to the hatching layer, I started in the dark areas and core shadow to express the key values. From there, the other shading components will follow this key value. In the bright areas, you can also use broken lines for cross-hatching. After completing the cross-hatching layer, we spend some time refining and adding details. You can draw the eyelashes in this step, and I can also draw the reflection of the eyelashes on the eye's highlight. And here, I noticed the iris value is a bit brighter than I wanted, so I make it a little bit darker. You can also add any details and textures you like in this step. And that's the process of drawing an eye and making it look like an engraving work. I hope this video has provided you with some useful information. Thank you for watching and have a good day.